Hello, it's Marjorie. Welcome back. This is going to be a little bit more of housekeeping and just predictions and ramblings, but I have a little structure for it, and I have a major, major addendum to last episode. Basically, I'm a moron. I missed the entire second half of the end monologue of that episode. I thought that it just ended three sentences in, and there's like six more sentences, and they're very, very important sentences. So I do want to talk about those, and it's important because I think it kind of ties into what I think we're gonna see. I don't really know if predictions is what I want to call this, but like hopes and dreams. But this is how we'll do it. Talk about the addendum, talk about the ending monologue in its entirety instead of just the first two sentences, like I did in the episode analysis. So I actually put that on. People kept talking about Wharton's handmaid killing him, and I'm like, I don't know what you people are talking about. Like, I did not see that at all. So before I recorded this, I really wanted to go back and make an addendum about that, about like, yes, that's totally Wharton's handmaid. Well, I don't know why I was wondering about it. Turns out, no, I don't think it's Wharton's handmaid. I think that's Calhoun's handmaid. I have no idea what Calhoun's handmaid looks like, but it looks like Calhoun that's sleeping, unless someone's talking about a different shot. I stopped being concerned about the handmaid and Wharton once I realized I had missed like the entire end of the monologue, and it's such a good monologue. It like blew my mind. So I will talk about that, and then we'll talk about, I think then we can look at what shots are left from the trailer, because there's actually a lot. I had said in the trailer breakdown, one of the many things that I got wrong from that trailer breakdown was that I assumed it would all be for like everything we were seeing would happen in the first three episodes. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's in 9 and 10 and we still haven't seen like a pretty decent chunk of this trailer. So we'll go back and look at that. Then we will look at the book a little bit because that will give us some clues. So, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about the Testaments or how The Handmaid's Tale ends, don't listen to the end of this. Don't listen to any more of this, honestly. Then we'll go character by character of the people who are left. And then we just wait for episode 9, Execution. I can't wait. But speaking of why I'm so excited to wait for episode 9, the first season that we did this podcast, it was season 3. And it was very, very difficult to watch these episodes when they aired and then get the podcast out before the new episode would air. So we managed to get ourselves the screeners for season 4 and 5 and 6. So that has made it much easier to get the episodes out. And it was a very, very cool experience. Like through this whole podcast and everything that we had done, from just starting it as like on a whim and getting to where we were, it was like, I can't believe Hulu is giving us these episodes early so that we can watch them. So it's been this incredible experience, but it is not the same as watching it on your TV. Like I have to watch it on my laptop, and I guess theoretically I could screen it onto my TV, but still the quality is not the same. You get these really cool insights, like there's some editing stuff that you get to see, which is fun for my brain, but it's just not the same experience as watching it. And I'm quite sure that we're not getting screeners, or I'm not getting screeners. It makes sense that they're not going to come out because it's just these last two episodes and their big finale, and no one wants spoilers, so I get it. But it does change my timeline a little bit. So I have a plan, and then I have a backup plan if it doesn't work. So a little housekeeping, and then we'll get into the predictions. So what I want to do is the episode airs at midnight. So I would like to do a live reaction right after the episode. And by right after the episode, I mean like a little bit after the episode. I'll jump on live on YouTube. It's the only place I am right now. We'll just react. I'll attempt to read comments by myself and see how it goes. I'll see if I can find a comment reader to help me out. But if I can't, we'll figure it out. Now, the only reason that I say I need a backup plan for this is that the only reason that we even have a YouTube channel is because season 4, the trailer came out and we wanted to do a trailer breakdown. We had mentioned that we wanted to do it maybe on Facebook. We said we would do it live because we thought it would be fun. It would just be easy enough and we would just go live and see how it went. And we had like 5 people that wanted to see this thing. It wasn't like there was a ton of people waiting desperately, but we felt terrible. We couldn't figure it out. So for whatever reason, like live just, I don't know, we had technical issues. And so instead what we did was we recorded this trailer breakdown, and I edited it so roughly. And by so roughly, I mean I had zero concept of what video editing was. This is the first time we had worked with video. We were only working with video because we were recording remotely because of COVID. So it was just an experiment. So we then had this video that was like an hour and a half long. And I tried to upload it to Facebook and say, here, sorry we couldn't go live, but like, here's the breakdown the next morning. And it wouldn't upload. So the only way that I could work around my issues with uploading it to Facebook was to upload it to YouTube and then copy it and post the link on Facebook. So I did that, and then it got 4,000 views. And I was like, oh my God, that's not what was it meant for everyone to see. That was just us like screwing around. The point of that story is that I am very hesitant to commit to any kind of live anything just because I feel like the second I do, something isn't going to work. By the time I'm uploading this video tomorrow, I will get into YouTube and test out the live function. But I was reading about it today and it seems pretty easy. So I think I can figure it out. And I think that will be the best way to get a quick reaction. And we can just talk about whatever we're seeing there. And then you can give me a little bit of time to get through the rest of the episode. I'll just get it done before the next episode comes out. And we will do it all again for the season finale. I'll try to go live. I'm not sure what my work schedule will be for that point, but hopefully I can move some stuff around and make that work. So that's the housekeeping. I'll try to, I think there's like a way to go on YouTube and like schedule it. I think like 1:15. And we'll jump on here and react to the episode, and I'll try to read some comments and talk about what we see. But let's guess what we're going to see, because I do have some guesses. Okay, so first, let me talk about the ending monologue of Exodus that I completely botched. And by botched, I mean I didn't even know it existed. I just turned off the episode every time. June's monologue goes, the dress became a uniform, and we became an army. And then the music comes in, and I thought the episode was over. Every time. And I must have rewatched this episode. Like, I'm not kidding when I say I watched them 10 times. Like, I watched them 10 times in various different capacities. And apparently, every single time that signaled to me that it was over and I was done and I could start watching it again. So I missed it every single time. And I just realized that's what it is. It's the music cutting in that makes me think now we're just going to get shots of handmaids walking through the street. So I start to watch the shots of the handmaids walking through the street. And then by that point, I've turned it off. There is more to the quote, and it's a very important quote. The entire statement was, the dress becomes a uniform, and we became an army to free ourselves, to become who we were meant to be, who we deserved to be. We would take our freedom and use every last ounce of it to fight. And so we fled, away from the darkness within and without, and into the light. And that is not the same as the book quote. And I had mentioned and like probably botched the book quote when I was talking in this episode without realizing that this is how this episode ends, except it ends better. It doesn't end as ambiguous as the book. And this is one of the things that really hooked me on the show and made me absolutely love it with season 2, because all of season 1 covers a good chunk of the plot of the book. But when I read The Handmaid's Tale, the book, what I hate about it is the ambiguity and I guess just like the unknown components of which June's story ends. You get the epilogue in the back. And we'll talk about that because I do hope that we get to see some of this epilogue in this TV show in episode 10. But I don't know if that's actually realistic to hope for, but I do hope for it. So we'll see if it actually happens. June's story itself ends with a quote. So she just found out that Emily hung herself when the eyes came for her. And there's a new Glenn, and now the eyes are coming for June. And she thinks she's pregnant with Nick's kid. And Nick comes up and tells her to trust him and that this is Mayday and they're going to help you get out or something. And she has to go into the van. And the book ends, or at least June's tale ends with, and so I step up into the darkness within or into the light. But the TV show changed it to away from the darkness within and without and into the light. And I just like that quote better. So it just makes me so happy because this is what I've loved about this TV show from the start of season 2. And I obviously love season 1. Like they did the book really well, but it was season 2 that really hooked me on this series because they went off of the book material and filled in all these gaps and blanks and fleshed out characters in such an incredible way that I was just so in love with. And I talk about it all the time, but season 2 the opening scene of season 2 is just my favorite thing on TV or screen or medium. It's just so good. So to see that this show has ended that episode with changing the quote in a way in which I really love because it's more definitive. They're stepping away from the darkness within and without and into the light. And I loved it. So sorry that I missed it. I feel like a complete idiot, but I'm glad that I'm getting this opportunity to talk about it. And it actually does matter in this video because I was really convinced that that quote was going to show up at some point in the last 2 episodes. And I was really, really hoping that they weren't going to throw that in there as the last statement of the series in its identical form because it's just too ambiguous. And I know we're getting the testaments, but you can't end this series that ambiguous. Like, I need a little more. So I do have a prediction or a hope and dream. I hate saying prediction. I don't know why prediction bothers me. Like, I don't know how to predict the show. It's already done. I'm sure what they did is great. I just want to see it. I don't really want to guess what happens as much as like just see it. But we will try to guess. They'll probably be wildly wrong. And one thing that's really interesting to me also about using that quote in episode 8, even with it changed, I still would have thought it would have come in 10. So that makes me very excited to see what is coming in 9 and 10 from the book because I'm sure they're going to end with something from the book. I just have a couple guesses now that I know that that quote is out of play, which I like because I want that quote out of play. I like it here and I like it changed. But let's get into the what we know from the trailer because um, it's kind of a lot of shots, but I think they're all within this execution episode as far as all this fighting in the streets with the Akano people and Luke and June and the gallows, right? So what I'm guessing is all of these handmaids are going to go kill these commanders, obviously. It's not really a guess. I think we've seen that. But this will be the gallows is going to be the fallout of that. And I feel strongly that Wharton does not have a handmaid that's going to kill him. I think they've made it pretty clear that Christina has come from DC, and I just think she's going to be so far out of the loop of this plan with these commanders. So while I think all of the Boston commanders are going to be dead, Wharton is still going to be there to contend with. And we know based on Jezebel's that he has no problem killing a bunch of handmaids, a bunch of women, a bunch of rebels, a bunch of people out of line. So all these commanders are going to be dead, and I think it's going to be pretty easy to piece together that it came from the cake. Which brings me to my first prediction that I'm really scared for Rita about that. That hit me with the last episode. I forgot to mention it. When she was smiling and saying no to the cake, because I'm like, oh God, they're gonna know. Like Lydia already figured it out. They're gonna figure out that the cake was part of the plan. I really hope that they know that Rita's gonna be at risk and they get her back to Canada ASAP. But then I'm worried about her family. So hopefully they have an escape route for her family. That does make me feel less safe about her sister. Like they're going to know. Gilead knows she has a sister. They've already reunited her in New Bethlehem. So even if they get Rita out, I'm sure her family would be at risk at that point. So that doesn't feel great. But I do hope that Rita gets out. It would suck for Rita to die the second she enters the fight. Like, yes, what a way to go out. But she just wanted peace. She just wanted to move on. She just wanted some kind of healing and some kind of life to create for herself. And she was so close to doing that. And she was so resistant to joining this fight. And it's understandable how she got pushed into it and why she would want to be reunited with her family. And then to have that hope pulled away from her would push her over the ledge. But God, I really hope it doesn't kill her because that would just suck and I would be sad because I like Rita too much. And she was just so anti-fight. Like, she deserves to poison that cake and go live happily ever after in Canada, hopefully with her family, but that seems more unrealistic that they'd be able to get her family out as well. But I think they could. Maybe. Maybe they could because maybe her family will be there as guests of the cake maker. So then they'll all be together. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible with what Larry was saying. Oh, that's the other thing. Sorry, Larry is Lawrence. It's an old habit. I can't imagine he's going to survive the next two episodes. I don't, even if he manages to survive the next two episodes, which I'm not convinced of, I don't foresee him being in the Testaments. So I'm just going to stick with Larry at this point. I'm sorry if that confuses people. It's Lawrence. It's just a nickname for Lawrence. And his habit, he's Larry to me. I'm sorry. Larry did say that all of the security, or maybe it was June, that said that the security would be pulled into Boston. So wherever Rita's family is, maybe there would be a lot less security there if she's close enough by, or that would be affected. Um, or the Econo people, they just wouldn't have eyes on her in a way in which would be concerning, and they could get Rita's family out to safety before any of the fallout of this massacre. Hopefully. But so we go back to the gallows. I do think they're gonna have some kind of repercussions, and I just feel like it has to be Wharton. Who else would it be? We know Belle is dead, so it's either Larry presiding over all of these consequences, but why would he do it when Wharton's right there? Like, Serena's not just gonna walk away from Wharton and that's the end of that relationship. I actually have a couple theories on Wharton too that make sense with the Testament. So I think that Wharton is gonna be in charge of punishing these handmaids, and that's why there's this big public hanging of the handmaids. So I don't know what's gonna happen with Lydia. I think if it's Wharton, if Wharton, it has to be Wharton who's in charge, right? And if it's Wharton, then Lydia would also be in trouble. There's no way that kind of rebellion could happen under her watch and not have her end up on the wall. Like, we've heard Wharton say that to Nick so many times. I think he's a true believer. We've seen that. He's a hardliner, true Gilead believer. So he would absolutely put Lydia up on the wall because this all happened under her watch, and therefore she's too suspect. And we know that it did happen under her watch and she should be suspect. So yeah, I think Guardian in that aunt's room be damned. I think Lydia's taken the fall for this because she's in charge. But I don't know if anyone's going to actually get hung. I think it'll be another fake out hanging like we had in season 2. But this time, not intentionally. I think they want to hang people. I still think that Luke's going to interrupt it when he throws that grenade. They have all the bombs. And then I think all the shots that we have of the handmaids fighting is going to be the fallout of this gallows scene and the potential hanging of June, which isn't going to happen. Like, I'm very sure June survives the scene and this series. So, no doubt in my mind. If June dies, my world will be rocked. So we'll see. And then the only other shots that we have from the trailer, I think, that we haven't seen yet are the shots of Serena holding Noah, and you can hear the bombs outside and rumbling and the chandeliers like rattling, and Larry responds with rebellion. So I think we'll see that, and that's what it'll be. But and then we have the shot of Tuello going into the Lawrence's house, and I had no idea that that was Lawrence's house in the trailer. I definitely didn't know that was Tuello. I've heard that said many, many times now and seen that still in that theory, and yeah, that makes perfect sense. So those are the trailer shots. Now let's get into, I don't know if I want to do the book next, or let's go character by character actually. With that rebellion, you're going to have the bombs going off, right? And I don't know where everyone goes after that, but I just feel very, very strongly that Serena's gonna die. And I don't say that because I think like she deserves to die or it'd be a fitting thing to see her die. I just think the way in which she's gone about fixing everything that she's set into place, as she's tried to do in the season, is failing. She's failing. She married Wharton and she's his property now. And I think that's just a fatal flaw for her. It's possible that Larry can get her out and Tuello can get her out. We know if anyone has a soft spot for Serena, it's definitely Tuello. Ooh, hadn't considered that. A Tuello Serena reunion and some closure would be really interesting if she lives. But I don't think she's going to live. If I had to make a specific prediction of how she'll die, the way in which I think it being symbolic is We see the rumblings, we see the bombs. If she's buried under the rubble of her own creation, I just think that's very symbolic as a death. I think that she wanted this to be about her. It's always been about her. And the one thing that's really fascinating about the book is that her legacy is wiped off the map. She's not even mentioned in the epilogue. Um, Her name's not Serena Joy, and they have no recollection of her after Fred's death. They talk about Fred being purged, and they don't say anything about Serena. So we have always on this podcast talked about Serena and the ending of The Handmaid's Tale as eventually she's just going to get wiped off the map. And I don't see a way in which Serena lives and lives wiped off the map, in existence of a legacy of any kind of notoriety or platform. If she lives, she wouldn't, unless she gets buried into the handmaids of Gilead or sent to the colonies. I mean, she's Wharton's wife, so he could have her turned into a handmaid or punished in some way in which she goes away and is never really heard from. If she's turned into a handmaid, she'd lose her identity. So I suppose that's possible. We've already seen Serena get turned into a handmaid, like, and we saw that changed her heart in some way, but only in a little bit. I think the biggest tell for Serena in that last episode was that when she said I'm fertile, as if again the rules won't apply to her. She's special. She's unique and doesn't need a handmaid, and also she's reformed and enlightened and has seen the light, and now she knows that these handmaids are not just vessels, that they're human beings, and she's trying to make a better life for them, but only in these small little baby step ways where they're still handmaids and they still have to perform their sacred duty. They just get to retire better than they did before, which again, I agree with Serena. Progress and comes in fits and starts, but it's just not enough for Serena in the power in which she holds. And she's very happy to get remarried and be the face of Gilead, despite the fact that these handmaids are going to be sitting at her wedding, and despite the fact that her husband's going to bring a handmaid home as a gift. So I don't know. I guess all I'm saying is I just don't think Serena is capable of getting her freedom and going away quietly. So I mean, the epilogue is like 200 years in the future, so it's possible that like she doesn't necessarily go away quietly, just quietly in the grand scheme of history. Um, but I just see her dying. I don't know. I just think she's dead. That shot of that sunset going through her heart was just too much for me, and I can't not see that anymore. And I just have convinced myself that she's gonna die. So I don't know how. Buried under Gilead is kind of like poetically the right thing for her. And then like to have her son go to Wharton, because her son is Wharton's property now. Like that's a fact. So I don't know. I don't know. Serena's screwed. Wharton's not going to let her get away. I think that he's way too controlling and way too calculated, and he knew how to act to get her to marry him, and he's got her married now. So he has his wife, and oh, that brings me. Let's talk about. I do have a theory on Wharton here. This one's going to get a little testamentsy. So in the testaments, yeah, spoilers. So as far as Wharton goes, I think, oh, actually, maybe that's a way in which Serena would stay alive. No. Okay. Serena dies. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So Serena dies, and then Wharton can play grieving husband, and he can now fight to get Nicole back because he's going to claim that Nicole is Serena's and therefore his child. Because I think that's how that would work. Um, Serena would have been Fred's. Serena. Serena would have been Fred's, and so would have Nicole Hawley. And then Nicole Hawley escapes to Canada. Fred dies, and Serena marries Wharton. So Therefore, Serena and her children, and in Gilead's eyes, Nicole Hawley is Serena's child, is now Wharton's child. And Wharton could play grieving husband, and he can fight to get this child back. And why does he want to get this child back? Because June Osborne is a thorn in his side. I think that whatever happens in this execution episode is going to be, I mean, not whatever happens, we know she's going to take out all these commanders in Boston. So I think she has forever after this marked herself as a target and now marked Nicole Hawley as a target too. I think Wharton's going to make a play for her. And that is how we're going to get that other scene that I did forget. There's another shot in that trailer that I forgot to talk about. It looks like June and Holly, senior, in front of a memorial wall. And I have no idea what that memorial wall is going to be. Maybe just the fallout of this fight in Boston. Maybe it's back in the Boston Globe. Like, I don't know. But I do think that Holly comes. And Holly must come because they got to figure out something to do with Holly Nicole because she has to go into some serious hiding. And we do know that Nick has already mentioned that he has these papers for her when he was going to take her to Paris. So it's possible that they're going to give her some kind of new identity and put her in deep underground at that point. And that is when we'll see June say goodbye to her if she gets to at all. Yeah, so that's I do think that could possibly be it. We know that in the Testaments, baby Nicole's a big deal, and we know that right now in The Handmaid's Tale, she's not. So there has to be a change in the next two episodes, and that makes perfect sense to me that it'd be Wharton, and that Wharton would use this to prop himself up the same way that Fred did. Fred and Wharton see this as a political agenda, see this child as a political agenda, and they're going to manipulate that. And we've seen how Fred's going to do it, and I think Wharton is going to do it even better. And way to go, Serena, you married your fucking husband again. Damn, she just falls for it, huh? So that is what I think is going to happen. And in order for that to happen, I think Serena has to die. So she'll die in the fallout, and though her heart may be with the rebels at that point, it's too little, too late, and Wharton is going to use her image and her death as grief and as a way to fight for Nicole and to prop up himself as a strong leader and gain some sympathy for Gilead on this global scale of look at this horrible thing that happened to all of these people in our country, this attack, you know? So he's just going to manipulate this and use this as propaganda. And that is my thoughts on Wharton. So we got Serena and we got Wharton. And I think Holly's going to come back. So we'll talk about Holly Sr. I think we're going to see her. I don't have a ton of thoughts on her other than I don't think she's going to like carry over into the Testaments. Maybe she'll guest star because I fucking love Cherry Jones so much. And that would be incredible, but I doubt it. I doubt it in any like serious plot way at this point. So, but for some reason, I think maybe she won't stay with her. It'd be cool if she does, if she gets to raise her. I think if anything, gosh, I don't know what they're gonna do with Holly the baby. It makes sense that they would leave her with grandma, but maybe by the testament she's dead. I don't think Holly's gonna be. I don't think Cherry Jones is gonna be in the Testaments, but maybe she is. I don't know. I don't think. I have no idea what's gonna happen with either of these Hollies. It just looks like they come back for a moment and June is with them somewhere. Oh, unless there's an attack in Alaska. Holy fuck. Oh God. Oh no. What if they attack Holly in Alaska? They know that that's where June should be. So what if they know that Holly Nicole's there and she's with Holly, so there's an attack, but somehow they survive. Probably Nick. Nick wouldn't let something happen to Holly, especially if Wharton's going after Holly. Oh no. So he's gonna make sure, if nothing else, Nick will make sure that Holly is safe, his child. So he's probably going to get them out, but not in time to stop an attack of Alaska. And that is what June goes to see. that's what that memorial wall is, because that doesn't make sense that Holly would go to Gilead. How the hell is that going to happen? That's Nick. And at that point, I think that he will no longer have any faith in Gilead in a way in which he can continue to stay as a commander and and work under Wharton. He's gonna have to join Mayday in a real serious way, because I think he'll just be so disgusted with it at that point. For after everything he's seen, it that's what it'll be. It, you know what? And I want Nick to. Sometimes I feel like Nick doesn't so much care about this baby, and I think he's had to emotionally remove himself from this child, like basically since conception. So the best he can do for her is keep her safe. So I can actually see that really being his turning point, is to protect this child who's never going to be out of the clutches of Gilead while Gilead still exists. Huh. All right. And so then I guess we'll do Luke. I don't think Luke's gonna die. If it sticks with the Testaments, Luke will live. I have an unlikely hope for what I want the June, Nick, and Luke love triangle, if you want to call it that, but I have like serious qualms with even calling it a love triangle in that, in any other sense than like a love story of war. I don't know, but I just feel like it can be both. She's had a relationship with both these men in these extremely extenuating circumstances, and she has children with both these men, and she has continued to have a relationship with both these men, regardless of what side of the border she's been on. Um, so I think that in my perfect world, she will continue to have a relationship with both these men. And that's all I care about. I don't really care who she ends up with or if she ends up with either. I think she needs a lot of therapy and a lot of healing. And I think she's gonna, I mean, I don't think, we know June enters Mayday in like a big and real way. It has to go underground in like a big and real way. And I think it's gonna be after the fallout of everything that goes down in Gilead here. So June's gonna put a target on her back. Have we seen all of her assassination attempts? In the Testaments, they say that there were two assassination attempts. Were we considering both of those to be in the season finale or in the season 5? I don't know if they're both in the finale. There's the shooting at the memorial. I don't know if that was directly an assassination attempt at June or just general violence against these refugees. But I guess that would probably be an assassination attempt at June. I don't know. And then she gets run over. Oh, I mean, I guess you could consider the assassination attempt to be when they're gonna string her up at the gallows, and then they don't, because they won't. Um, I don't know. Two assassination attempts. It could just be in season 5, in that episode where she gets shot at, and I think it's 9 where she gets shot at, and 10 where she gets run over. So I don't know. We could see in 10 of this season another assassination attempt at June if she manages to get away. So she'll get away. I don't know how. I'm just guessing all of these fights are going to cause enough distraction. They have to have a getaway plan. Like they can't just go in and kill all these commanders. I don't know. There's got to be an escape part of this plan that we haven't seen yet. But there is something, there's one little quote in the book that does make me think this episode of Execution and the last one we saw of Exodus, of like the start of June's plan and Mayday's plan, which is really June's plan. There's this one line in the book that kind of fits that whole imagery and that whole idea. Like I was saying earlier, like most of this book happened in season 1 as far as like the plot goes and a lot of the details. So contextually, this is happening in the book when the eyes are coming to pick up June at the end. And she finishes her story with the quote about stepping into the darkness or into the light. But prior to that, she's debating all of the options. She's kind of going through all the ways in which she could have killed herself prior to the eyes coming to get her. And one of the things that she says before she starts talking about killing herself, she says, there are a number of things I could do. I could set fire to the house, for instance. I could bundle up some of my clothes and the sheets and strike my one hidden match. If it didn't catch, that would be that. But if it did, there would be at least one event, a signal of some kind to mark my exit. So it's kind of cool because we have seen Serena burn it all down in that sense in season 3. But Larry had kind of alluded to June when she was starting to walk away and go home to Alaska, and he needed her to come back and kill all these commanders. And he had said to her, "Is this what you want your legacy to be? Is this how June Osborne goes out?" And I think instead we're going to see that this is how June Osborne goes out, is her setting this fire and seeing if it's going to catch. And I think it will catch. I think she's going to go into May Day and continue to fight for the next 15 years. And so she's going to continue fighting for May Day and continuing to bring down this regime, because this regime is going to continue to attack her daughters. And she told her mother she's not going to rest or remove her ear tag until all the handmaids are free. So I think that this quote in this book, not that they're going to use it in this episode, I just feel like this is symbolically kind of the same thing of June striking one more hidden match and seeing if it's going to take. And she managed to kill a bunch more commanders, which is always one of June's favorite things to do. And we'll see the fallout of that, but I think that they're, on the grand scheme of things, it's going to be a lot of good. Although I don't know, it just seems like a lot of people might get killed. So I don't want anyone to get killed. I've decided I absolutely don't want Moira to get killed. I don't really know where we're gonna see Moira go. I just hope we saw her really like shine when she stood up to Lydia. And that was a full circle moment for Moira's character. I feel like we've seen she had that fire in her in the beginning, and then it was kind of stamped out, and then she had to heal and recover and find that again. And now that we've seen that, I think I don't want her to die, because she's made it very clear that she wants to seek out a life for herself. And I just hate it when characters say things like that and then they get killed. So I know that's the reality of the situation, but I don't want that from Moira either, or Rita. I just want them to be out and happy. I think that Moira will probably still work with Mayday in June. I don't have any other thoughts for Moira other than I want her to maybe to save June. That would be kind of nice for her character to be able to do, is to come through for June in a really pivotal moment. I mean, she got her out of Gilead, so that was coming through for June in a really pivotal moment. So maybe she doesn't really need another one of those. I don't know. I just want good things for Moira, and I definitely want her to still be alive. Um, Hannah. Let's talk about Hannah. I don't think we're going to see her. I don't think we're going to see her in this season. Oh, maybe. Maybe we'll reference her. I think we got to reference. Yeah, that's crazy. We'll see Hannah in this. I don't know if we'll see Hannah, but they'll mention Hannah. We'll get some kind of update. I'm not convinced that Hannah's even on the East Coast at this point. I think they got the Mackenzies the hell out of there. So we'll see what goes on with Hannah. I hope that June and Luke at least get an update on her, some kind of closure, they haven't got any new information from her all season. Not that there's been like an extreme amount of time that's gone by in this season, but a couple months, and they have no news on Hannah. So I'd like to see some news for Hannah. All right. But I don't know what it's going to be, other than to hint at the testaments and whatever we'll see from Hannah in the future. And I think a lot of that depends on how exactly closely they stay to the source material there. There's going to be some ways in which they deviate. So just like they did in this book, one of the biggest deviations in this book, or the biggest fleshing out of characters in this book, is Janine. She's not too much more than like an afterthought and a repeated mention, but kind of as like there's just not much to Janine other than she's one of the ones that has like fully lost her mind because of the horrors around her. So to see the way in which Janine's arc has gone, I just want what everyone else has already said for her. I want her to get out, and I want her to get out with her child. And I think that the army going into Tuello's place makes me feel like that's a very good possibility for Janine, because that's like the only reason. I don't think they're like real concerned with getting Naomi. I mean, obviously Naomi's not great, and if she were to get captured, she'd be a war criminal, probably. I would think so. She participated in ceremonies. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think like Naomi is not that important. No one's trying to get to Naomi so much. So it if Larry was pushing her to eat the cake, it's got to be to get her out of the way so he can operate this plan. And also because he'd like to get Angela out for Janine and get Janine out. Get Angela and Janine reunited and out. That's what I want for Janine. And then I want June to tell her the truth about her child. At some point, she needs to know that, right? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's all the closure that Janine needs is that he's in California and unattainable, and she doesn't need to grieve a child that she's already grieved so many times. But I think at this point, that was definitely the kinder thing for June to do was to give her that lie, and I don't necessarily see them having that conversation with her, but maybe it's possible. But I just want Janine to get out. I don't see Janine dying. I think she's, if anyone gets a happy ending on here, it's probably Janine and Moira, damn it. They're the ones, and Rita, I don't know. Everyone wants it. I just think it's, everybody has been through things and deserves a happy ending. I just don't know if everyone's going to get it. But I think there's going to be more happy endings here than not because I think the show has been through so many, we've seen so many horrors on the show in general. We don't need like a slaughterhouse red wedding to see horror. We see it every day in Gilead. Um, and the lack of happy ending will just be that Gilead continues, and we know it does. And I mean, you could say that it's not a happy ending for June to not get her child back, but honestly, I would argue that even if June did get her child back, it wouldn't be a happy ending. I mean, Hannah going back to June and Luke at this point would be raw at best. Like we've seen these reunions with these children that have spent so much time in Gilead. At this point, you're re-traumatizing her. I'm not saying that Hannah wouldn't be better off with June and Luke outside of Gilead. I just think that it wouldn't be the happy ending that everyone expects because we've seen that on the show. It's just not a happy ending. It's there's been too much trauma. What's been done has been done. And that's why I kind of like the way the Testaments takes it because June getting Hannah back at the stage is happy. It's better. It's best case scenario for Hannah and her safety. But it just wouldn't look the same as if she had gotten her back in season 2 when they were at the lake house. I think that's most of what we'll see in execution is the the rest of June's final striking match in Gilead and her legacy there. And then afterwards, I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to close this up with The Handmaid's Tale. I'm very excited because they've already used that quote. So I think it's going to be more epilogue. And I have a little bit of a hope and dream. I don't know if it's like realistic or like if there's a million different possibilities for how this could play out. A lot of it will depend on what happens in episode 9 anyway. But I actually think, especially because I just went back and listened to that darn monologue from episode 8 at the end. And I think yes, you know what? The beginning monologue was past tense too. June's monologues haven't been past tense. They've been present tense. I'm 99% sure. I could be way wrong. It might be the first time I've been way wrong while doing these things, but I'm pretty sure they're present tense. And this one's past tense. So, what I think would be really interesting and really cool is to see June go into hiding. And what I think the last shots of this series will be is one hell of an epic monologue because they're always so good. And I promise I'll watch the whole thing this time. But I think it's going to be a monologue of whatever she says. It'll be great. But her recording onto the Handmaid's Tale tapes for the first time in hiding and getting her story out. And what we heard in that monologue at 8 could be the beginning of her recording that because that and that's why it's in past tense because she's now telling the Handmaid's Tale and recording them. And then it's those recorded tapes that are eventually going to, in 200 years, be talked about in the symposium that the epilogue covers. I don't think, I might have said in the beginning that as much as I'd love to see a scene from the epilogue in the symposium, I don't know if they would go 200 years in the future. That's kind of a weird jump to make. I think instead we'll just get references to it. There's a lot of questions in the epilogue about, like, I mean, some of them are kind of dickish questions, like wishing that Offred had given her name and given more useful information so that 200 years from now historians could ha- have answers to the questions they're wondering. And it's like, I mean, there's a lot to get into in the epilogue, and I'm actually dying to go back and read this book better now that once the series finishes. And I'll definitely do some videos comparing the two once we have this completed series. We have seen one nod to the tapes in the show, but seeing a way in which June starts recording her story in her Bangor, Maine hideaway, which is where they find the tapes. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where she hides away, but she's going to be part of the quote unquote female underground network, I think. And this house might have been one of those safe houses where they find these tapes. So it would be very cool to see, of all the questions in the epilogue, which ones are answered. But I would especially like to see June start to record her tale to be told and dissected 200 years in the future alongside the Testaments. Who else do we have left? I know I didn't really touch on Nick and June too much. So if the Testaments is true, Nick, June, and Luke all are going to survive. What I would like to see is a conversation and a little bit of closure about, maybe, I guess I would either like to see June clearly and definitively state that she has a relationship with both of these men and will continue to, in whatever capacity makes sense for everybody involved. Or she will no longer have a relationship with either of these two men and just focus on herself and Mayday and whatever healing she can and needs to do. But I don't think she's gonna pick one or the other. I just don't see that happening. But I did find some really interesting quotes in the Handmaid's Tale book that I don't remember reading. It's been so long since I read that book. There's a couple quotes in the end of the Handmaid's Tale book that kind of prove that this betrayal that Nick had of June and of the Mayday plan and blah blah blah, and the way in which she felt betrayed was important for the show to have at some point, because it's alluded to so much at the end of this book. So she says at one point, she's watching Nick, and she says, "Impossible to think that anyone for whom I feel such gratitude could betray me." So this is The Handmaid's Tale. This is all through June's eyes, and the series has been through June's eyes. And so I will definitely 100% do an entirely separate video where I break down all the ways in which this isn't bad writing that Nick is behaving in the way he has, and this isn't the show trying to like pull apart this great chemistry between June and Nick and like double down on Luke being the end game. Like, none of this is what was happening in the show, in my opinion. I just feel like this was these two men and these two love stories within The Handmaid's Tale were June and her story and her perspective. Within June's perspective in the book and in the show, she's kind of always just implicitly trusted Nick for various different reasons. And then she kind of explains it in that episode Shattered, where she says, I forgot who he was or who he had become. And it's because for so long she had only seen him in this tunnel vision way in which she had seen him, because she's only her, she can only have the perspective she's had. So I just think what she's feeling for Nick now in this betrayal was alluded to in the book, and I think it's really cool that they show it. I don't think this is the end of June and Nick. I don't. I think that she does feel betrayed, but I think in the end, Nick is going to come through, and I think he's going to come through in a way in which he can no longer put on that commander uniform and not want to burn it all down. Oh, but there is a really interesting quote in here that I just can't believe I never knew existed. She's talking about when she escapes and wanting to escape, and she says, "The fact is that I no longer want to leave, escape, cross the border to freedom. I want to be here with Nick where I can get at him." So that's interesting because I just don't never remember that being a sentiment, but I definitely can see how that has always been something that has plagued her as she's considered an attempted escape. We always talk about Hannah, but it's interesting that in the book it was also Nick that she was not wanting to leave. But also in the book, she doesn't know that Luke is alive. So I don't know if that information would have changed these thoughts at this point. So that's a couple things from the book, but uh, I think I will go back and read that epilogue again after we watch episode 9 and see if we can and see if I can extract anything else that we might see based on how 9 goes. But is there any other characters that I forgot? There's probably a lot. Who else haven't we talked about? So Nick, Luke, and June. I just want them to have some like resolution. I guess I just feel like June shouldn't have to choose between Luke and Nick any more than she would have to choose between Moira and Janine. She had a best friend pre Gilead, and then Gilead put her into circumstances in which she developed a really close relationship with Janine, so much so that she was ready to risk that Mayday plan just to get Janine out, and Moira was upset about that. So it was like she was in this weird love triangle between Moira, herself, and Janine. So, and no one was picking sides and saying she had to choose. So I just don't see why she has to choose between these two men and everything that they've been through. I just think she loves them both, and she can continue and should continue to love them both as long as Nick can fight for the right side. Like, obviously, Nick being a commander in Gilead under Wharton and fighting to get Holly Nicole back while then, like, undermining on the other side. No, like, he's going to have to go deep underground, which is what they say in the Testaments or the Handmaid's Tale. One of them, he's so, it's the Testaments. They say he's so deep underground he need a straw. I think it's Nick. It's either Nick or Luke. I'm pretty sure it's Nick. Nick's gonna go underground and fight alongside June. I'd like to see that. And Luke. I want all three of them fighting side by side to take down Gilead in extenuating circumstances. That's my hopes and dreams. She chooses both. They all fight together. The end. Um, all right, so we got Holly and Nicole. We got Holly Sr. We got Hannah. Not that there's much I have to guess about her. I don't know. We probably won't see much of her. We might get a mention. We'll find out in the Testaments. We're gonna get a whole series on Hannah coming up. Larry. Oh, we didn't talk about Larry. I think he's dead. I think he's dead. He's so willing and able to be dead that I would like to see him sacrifice himself for something big like June. Um, yeah, but he's so dead. I don't see him surviving because he's willing to be dead. The only thing he'd be useful at Mayday because he knows Gilead's structure so well and he knows the players so well. So if he gets out and survives, I guess he could continue his quest to destroy what he helped build. But I don't think so. I think Larry's dead. Um, and I bet it's gonna be really fucking funny. I bet I'll have one great line before it happens. But I have no idea. I have zero predictions of how he dies. I just don't see him coming out of the series alive. Yeah, like I just don't. He's so willing to die, and so and his neck is so far out on the line. Although he's just so useful that if he does live, I could see him going to Mayday and getting some amnesty or some immunity um, for all his many war crimes. But I don't know. Is that realistic? I think I think Larry's whole thing was that you had to. He is going down with the ship. He was never trying to get out. Getting out was just never an option for him, and not in the same way as Nick. That was the difference. Like getting out was never an option for Nick, and yet he doesn't want to burn it down. Getting out is not an option for Larry, but he's willing to do anything and everything, including die, to bring this place down. Now, I'm not saying that Nick has to like be willing to die, but he isn't even willing to admit that there's a problem in Gilead, unless that problem is June continually trying to fuck up his shit. So I see Larry dying because he's going to. He just doesn't, that's it. He wants to live long enough to bring this thing down, and I think he's going to fail, and hopefully he just fails. Hopefully he just manages to get Charlotte and Janine out first, and Rita and Moira and everybody. Just get everyone out, Larry. And that's been his legacy, aside from the architect of Gilead, that we've seen on the series. We've been told he's the architect of Gilead, and obviously I believe it, but we've seen him get many people out. So it's possible that he could help June on the Underground Female Railroad that they allude to in the epilogue, because we've seen so much of him getting women out. Like, that's his thing. He gets people out. But if the last thing he does is get Charlotte and Janine out, that'll be good enough for me. Because I do think he's dead. I think he's dead. I think Serena's dead. I want everyone else to survive. I don't know if that's realistic. I want all the commanders dead. I kind of forgot Rose. We talked about Rose a little bit with Borton, but I do think that her child might die from this poison in this cake. Whatever this cake poison is, could have some kind of ill effects on her pregnancy that causes her to go into labor, and either she dies or the baby dies because of this complication, right? And that could be another reason that Wharton goes off the deep end in terms of execution and going for Holly Nicole, and just kind of falls into this like Gilead commander villain because of Rose's death. I could see that happening too. I don't think Rose would ever turn quite Mayday. She would have no reason to. She kind of wanted a divorce from Nick, so if he goes underground, she could get that divorce. He might have to leave his other child. Oh, interesting. That would be interesting if she ends up being fine, baby and Rose being fine, and Nick has to decide to go underground, but has to leave that child in Gilead the same way June has to leave Hannah in Gilead. That could motivate him to fight in Mayday to bring that regime down at that point. I don't think Rose and Nick are going to live happily ever after in Gilead. I don't see that happening, mostly because I know Nick's going to go to Mayday. So, or go underground, I'm assuming, to Mayday. Oh, Lydia. I didn't really talk about Lydia because we've seen a big turning point in Lydia last episode, right? So she's gonna be resistance Lydia in some way, but I think we're gonna get some more seeds of the testaments of her learning to maneuver. I bet she's gonna get herself out of the situation because she has a lot of information on a whole lot of commanders. And that might be what's gonna save her here. I could see Wharton turning into a Judd-like character, but I'm not convinced. Actually, no, that's not true. I don't really see Wharton. They could utilize Wharton as a Judd-like character in the Testaments and replace him with Judd, but right now Wharton doesn't line up with Judd because he's too pious. Judd was just a monster. He wasn't a believer of Gilead necessarily. So I don't know what Lydia is going to do. She's going to get herself out of the situation, obviously. And I think it'll probably be with the information that she has acquired from being in such close quarters with these commanders and their households. Yeah, I think she's going to see that saves her here and continue to value that for the next 15 years, as we'll see in the Testaments. So I do think we'll see some of that for Lydia. I think that's got to be how she's going to get herself out of the situation, because I don't think they're just going to look the other way if she's in charge of these handmaids that have just slaughtered their commanders. Now that Lydia can't walk away from this as the executioner. She doesn't get to punish her girls here. This is going to be someone else. It's got to be Wharton. What else? Oh, you know who it could be that we haven't seen? If they're going to introduce anyone new in these last two episodes, we have heard so much about Bell Senior, and it's possible that that was just to explain how Bell Junior got the status and the audacity that he had, but it's possible that Bell Senior comes here. And if Bell Senior was Judd, well, I don't know why I'm insisting on finding Judd now. Judd will be in the Testaments and probably not here at all. Um, but so Lydia, I don't have a whole lot of guesses. We mostly know what's going to happen with Lydia, but I do think they'll give us some more Testament seeds. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the Testaments that would be something we'd have to see here in this time. I don't think so. It did talk about Naomi. I could see her dying. Yeah. I could see her dying. I could see her escaping too. Maybe they'll take her and Angela out together. I don't think Larry hates her. I think I could, nah. I think Naomi deserves to die in Gilead. I don't know if she, or stay in Gilead. I don't necessarily think she deserves to die in Gilead. But I don't think she deserves to be rescued from Gilead. I don't have any thoughts about Naomi. She'll probably be dead. I can see that happening. Oh, does she? No, she don't have. Does she have a handmaid? No. So she'll be spared from any of the Mayday plan, I think. So I don't see Naomi dying. I do see her staying in Gilead. I don't know where Naomi's gonna go. She's gonna have to find a new husband, maybe Wharton. No, they didn't even like each other at all. He thought she was so stupid. I don't know. I don't know what'll happen with Naomi. And then there's two characters that we haven't seen yet, and I think we haven't seen them because the complications that have nothing to do with the writers' room and everything to do with life and actors and scheduling. So I would love to see Emily again, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Just I don't think unless she comes back for some kind of finale scene. But I would like some closure there. I would actually really like some closure with both Emily and Esther. And I don't know if either, same thing, I don't know if that actress is coming back. So if if she just couldn't come back, then that's just the end of that storyline. We could get a closure there, but at the same time, like we've seen enough of the show to know that it wasn't going to end well for Esther. I just wanted June. She was just so intent on waiting for Mayday and intent on killing commanders and doing anything to make June proud in the name of resistance. And for June to be coming back in with this resistance and leaving her mark one final time, for Esther to not be part or to see or to benefit from this Mayday plan is rough. I don't think any further closure is really needed with either of those two characters, but I would love to see something, especially Emily. I'd love to see some kind of update of like anything of what happened when she got back into Gilead, but that's not really realistic. The way in which she went in, it doesn't seem like she's operating under the same Mayday that June was operating in, so she just kind of like went rogue across the border. I doubt she lasted long. Emily was never too discreet. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think I have done enough rambling. Yeah, so I'll do a live stream after the episode, maybe like 1:15 Eastern time, and we'll see what happens, and then we'll go from there. Do you disagree with me? I didn't see a shot of Wharton's handmaid, so I'm thinking she's not there. If Wharton's dead by the beginning of that episode, then like 90% of what I just said in this thing doesn't really matter anymore. So I hope that I'm right in the sense that Wharton's handmaid, there's no way she was involved in this scheme. I think it was Calhoun. So goodbye, Calhoun, because fucking we hated him. We've seen him for a long time, and he's always been shitty. So I'm glad that he's gone. But yeah, I think that was it. New Bethlehem is the only other question mark I had. Like, do you think that's going to continue? No. I think this is the end of New Bethlehem here. Probably with the end of Larry, which I also think is coming. So, however Larry ends, I think New Bethlehem was a folly and will not get any further than here. All right. So I think I covered everything I could think of. I don't think I missed any major characters. Tuello, I guess I didn't really mention him too much either, but I think he'll just continue fighting for Mayday. He's kind of had a one track mind. I'd like another Serena and Tuello scene, but we'll see. All right, I think that's enough rambling. No more guessing. Let's just wait and see what actually happens, and then we will dissect it from there. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back here on May 20th for episode 9 Execution.